Hi everyone, welcome to week 11, module 11. This module is called Environmental Education, Leadership, and Program Planning. And so here you can see that we start with our learning outcomes. We have our required readings. There's some program planning handouts, and then there's a series of assignments, as well as, if you'll notice this week, there is a series of 3 Zoom meeting reflections. And so you'll have to reflect in 3 parts, parts 1, 2, and 3. So let's go ahead and look at the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes are in 2 large categories. One is around the project planning learning outcomes, and the next one is on communication and teamwork learning outcomes. So be sure to read these carefully, and these align to everything that you'll be learning in this module. Next, we have our required readings, and one particularly important reading is the 2 hats that you're going to see a little later on in this module. And then really as well, really important is also this article, Looking for and Understanding Bias. And so it contains a number of to develop our understanding about what could be biased language, how do we avoid that, contains some concrete examples of that. And this is really important in our work as master naturalists, particularly in our role as an environmental educator. And then, of course, we have our guidelines for excellence. But the 2 hats, what I point out here is this paragraph here is always striking to me, that as environmental educators, we need to be as value fair or value free as we can when working in our role. So we need to strive to get all the facts. We need to examine and illuminate all the viewpoints and keep from letting our own particular position or our other hat as an environmentalist from mixing with our educator role. So I think that's a important one to highlight. Next, we have the program planning handouts. And so this one you'll want to print out and have the program planning sheet ahead of class, because we're going to be using it for the in-class activities. And then you'll have your midterm detail sheets. It contains more details about the program planning assignment. And then there's some the idea is though that we'll be working on this during class. This builds on the survey that you took in Module 10, where you were to complete a survey around your pillar of interest. And this week you're going to get your group assignment, you'll get and the assigned pillar during class, and then the idea is to work collaboratively with a group to complete it. Next, we have assignment number 1, which is advocate versus environmental educator, and I kind of alluded to this one earlier, but this really dives into understanding the difference between education and activism or advocacy. And for the assignment, you're going to read that article that I mentioned, 2 hats, describe the difference between education and advocacy, reflect on why it's important to remain in an educator role, and then in the part 2, you're going to write 2 short paragraphs, and this is really where the 2 hats come in, where one, you're going to write the first paragraph from the educational perspective hat and the other from the advocacy activist hat. And so these are 2 different ways of telling the story. Really helps us reflect on what we would say and not say when we're wearing one or the other hat. So that is worth 5 points, and you'll submit that as a text entry. And then we have our midterm program planning sheet upload. So you're going to use this handout again during class, but then be sure that when your group has completed all 7 steps, you're going to upload your own planning sheet, and make sure that you add the names of all your team members. But remember that each team member must upload their own copy of the planning sheet in order to get the 35 points of credit. So I mean, when I did this, I remember I had a lot of fun with this. It's just really great to get into a topic that interests you with a group of people who have that shared interest with you. And you can see the program planning sheet here, and there's 7 steps, and you'll have some time to work on it together. We get to do a situation analysis, some goals, some outcomes, develop some SMART goals, come up with some strategies, some ways, and then some ideas to execute your program. So it's a really creative assignment, and you get to really take it a lot of directions that are of personal interest to you and your team. So, and then next we have our Zoom meeting reflections. So remember I mentioned that there's 3 parts to this one, so be sure to do all 3. So there's part 1, there's part 2, and then there's part 3. So that is it for Module 11.